Okay. If you wanted to make the strongest argument that, in like the shortest amount of time, that enough aid was getting into Israel, what are the sources that you're relying on?
You mean enough aid was getting into Gaza?
What did I say?
You said enough aid was getting into Israel.
Yeah, I meant their military budget from the United States. But if you want to talk about Gaza, we can do that one too. Okay, for Gaza, yeah.
All right. Let me share with you a graph that I put together from all of the data on this. One moment. There are 3 databases that look at aid as it's coming in and as it was pre-war and as in the food availability in Gaza. You're talking about food when you say aid, presumably, because that's the main point of contention here.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you see the graph, from October 9th to October 21st, there was a full siege on Gaza. There was no aid that was going in. There was no water. There was no food. The siege was lifted on the 21st. From the 21st onward, aid had increased. However, there was a period of time in February where that decreased. There are several reasons for that. But then the aid increased to the point where currently it's at unprecedentedly high levels. So the argument to make currently, if that enough aid is currently going in, is that in the shortest amount of time would be just that there is more food right now going into Gaza on an average daily basis than not only there was pre-war, but there's more food now than there was pre-war plus the entirety of Gaza's food local agricultural production. And so if that's the case, then if there is a problem with food availability, it's going to be a distribution problem. It's not going to be a problem of protesters at the border, of Kerem Shalom, or Nitzana, or whatever the fuck. It's not going to be Israeli inspections halting the process. It's even if the Israeli inspections are annoying, it's not going to be that's causing a bottleneck. The problem is going to be distribution. At this point, there is more aid in Gaza well above any time they've experienced in pre-war conditions, and pre-war conditions plus all of their local agricultural production. In fact, there's probably more food entering in Gaza on a daily basis now than there has ever been in its entire history of existence at this point. So the issue right now is not...
Well, hold on. The issue is going to be in the past. People are going to say that enough trucks weren't going in. Like,
okay. So if that's the case, so then let's go through those memes. So one meme that you will encounter is the 500 meme truck figure. You familiar with that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. So they're going to say that there's 500 trucks of aid going in. That is not true for several reasons. It's not a daily average. What that is number one, it is a working day average. So if there are 500 trucks going in pre-war for Gaza, what that means is the true value is multiplied by 5/7 because they're only counting working days. They're only counting 5 working days out of the week for that figure. And that's on the UN. Those UN snapshots, what they say is the pre-crisis average per working day. I'll just give you an example of this, because this is where you'll be able to, if they pull out the 500 meme truck figure, you'll be able to say, okay, well, actually, look at how that's described. So if you scroll down to incoming trucks and the link I just DM'd you, see how it says the pre-crisis average per working day in 2023 was 500 truckloads, including fuel?
Wait, no, hold on. It was loading. It took a while. Okay. I'm scrolling down to which part here?
Incoming truckloads.
I see it. Yep.
Yeah. So see the 500 figure? Where it says 500 truckloads?
The only thing that didn't get bigger.
Or let me know that you're following along.
No, I'm not following along right now. Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Oh, it's all pictures. It's not actually text. It's.
Wait,
no.
are you?
Don't worry about what I'm doing. I'm figuring it out. Okay. Okay.
All right.
I made it real big.
Okay.
Okay.
So you see the OSHA snapshot so you're on the page that says OSHA snapshot humanitarian hostilities in the Gaza Strip and Israel reported impact day 203. This is just an example of their snapshots they release.
I didn't get any of what you just said. I'm so sorry.
Wait, it's a link I DM'd you.
No, wait. Yeah, I'm looking at the incoming truckloads. You said truckloads, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking at.
And do you see where it says the 500 figure right below in the description? It says the pre-crisis average per working day.
Oh, yep, I see that. Yep. Sorry, yeah, you're good. Okay. Sorry, I got triggered by this fucking website. Fuel. I got it though. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So that's where that figure comes from. Now, the way that figure will be presented by people who will try to trap you is they're not going to present it that way. They're going to say, pre-war, there was 500 trucks a day going in of aid. That's how they're going to say it. Now, that's false on a number of accounts. First off, it wasn't 500 truckloads of aid. It was 500 truckloads of AIDS. AIDS capital. Meaning those trucks included concrete for terror tunnels. Those trucks included commercial goods. Their trucks included electronics that were used for rocket igniters or whatever the fuck.
Okay, wait. First thing is, okay, so website for, you had a link to me that you sent me before that broke down the types of materials that were entering via the trucks. Do you have that information?
Yep, I'll send that to you as well. So that's, yeah. I'm going to send you all the databases.
Okay, yeah, let me shoot me that
one. So here's what you want. So here's a link. This is OSHA for crossings. This is a database, the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs.
Okay.
And if you click on that and go to entries and exits of commodities. All right.
Entries and exits of commodities in truckloads.
Okay. Yeah. And so you'll see that it says imports, and you'll be able to select the goods. So you see where it says groups of commodities. So they break it all down. If you don't select anything, it just gives you the total import over a given period of time. In fact, let me sneak over to look at your stream right now and see what you're looking at. So yeah, so right now what you're looking at is a breakdown of the total imports of trucks, in truckloads obviously, for the entirety of the year 2023. And this includes everything in the categories of the commodities of goods, including construction materials. Now, if you just clicked on construction materials, so now that you will only see the imports of construction materials in that category of construction materials.
Can I just curious, what is ABC construction materials? What's the difference between that and just construction?
There's two different categories of construction materials. I'm not exactly sure what the difference between those two things is. What I will tell you is that neither of those categories are allowed in or have been coming in since the war has begun.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm assuming I imagine one is referring to like concrete, and some others are just referring to other construction materials, or might just be some type of category of company or whatnot. But regardless, there are two different categories of construction materials that have been going in pre-war. That has made up a good chunk of the truckloads out of that claimed 500 figure. And you can actually calculate this yourself. You can look at the pre-war time frame. So, for example, if you take September,
I think this one thing does it well enough for me. If I do, if I select the years 2024 and 2023, and then I just click like human food products, I can see there was obviously a big dip in October, but I see that for the most recent month of March, it's more than has ever been shipped in before, and then the second highest would have been in January, which was more than anything else that had ever been shipped in before. Yeah. Yeah, I see. Okay.
Yeah, and April's even higher than that, by the way. They just didn't update it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
ABC, someone said aggregate, steel bars, and cement. I don't know what's true.
Oh, there we go. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. Aggregate, steel bars, and some. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so cement, steel bars. Okay. And then other related construction materials. So the point, so you'll be able, if you calculate it out, even with the full truckloads yourself, you'll notice it never adds up to 500. And even if you back calculate the fuel, because it says they added fuel from the UNRAW database in truckloads, it never adds up to 500 either. The way you get it to 500, I've done this myself. The way you get it to 500 is because remember it said per working day. So what you'll do is you'll get all the truckloads on average, and then you'll multiply by a factor of 7 over 5. Because remember, they're only doing it by working day. So if you were to convert that to they inflate it by only looking at it by working day. So if you're presenting it as a daily average, you're inflating it by a factor of 7 over 5. So there's 2 points to know about the 500 truck figure, 2 main points. Number one, that's not including just aid. That's including like HIV AIDS. Like that's including terror tunnel shed. That's one. The second thing to know is that they're only including, they're artificially inflating that figure if they present it as a daily average by a factor of 7 over 5.
Can you tell me, can you explain, wait, so you're telling me like on the weekend stuff just doesn't go into the Gaza Strip generally?
Those were not working days. So if what they do is they present it, if they present the working day average as the daily average, their factor that they're presenting is going to be inflated by a factor of 7 over 5.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, really, the way what should be done is it would be 5 over 7s. Really, if you wanted to get to the truth, you'd say, okay, well, here's the daily average, and you multiply by 5 over 7 to get the working day average. But what they're doing is they're doing it in reverse. They're taking a working day average and they're presenting it as a daily average. So they're artificially inflating by 7 over 5.
Sure. Okay.
Okay.
It's like having a bitch fucking day on the 1st of the month, and that's the only day you fuck bitches. And then when somebody asks you how many bitches you fuck a day, you say 1 per day. But that's not really accurate because you only fuck bitches on 1 day a month. So it's really 1 over 30, not 30 over.
Yeah, that's the game.
I got
exactly.
You. I understand. Okay.
The other database to be aware of. So yeah, this will allow you to check all the pre-war stuff for various different crossings, like Kerem Shalom, and Rafah, and even in the earlier years when like other crossings were open. But that's not going to be relevant to the current war. So that you'll be able to diffuse that 500 truck meme figure. The other figure you should know about is similar to the 500 truck meme figure. It is the 150 food truck figure, which has all the similar problems. So they will tell you that pre-war, there was 150 food trucks coming in the pre-war time. Now, if you simply look at that, you'll be able to see, well, that's actually not true. The daily average was not 150 food trucks. The way they get there is a similar process. The first step is to include everything that could conceivably be food. So there is a category of human food products that you just clicked. However, you should know that there's another category called animal feed that you haven't clicked.
Mm-hmm.
So they include animal feed, which includes feed for livestock, even pet food, include that too. Why not? And then there's another category called livestock itself. So you include, and there's an easy way to do that. You can, if you look at the side of the website over there, you can just say food, and that'll automatically include livestock, animal feed, and human food products. So that's step one. So step one is to include everything you could conceivably ever think of as food, including food for animals. Step two is to do the same inflation by a factor of 7 over 5. So if you do that, if you do all of those things and you round up to 150, just like you round up to 500, you get 150 food trucks.
Gotcha.
So that's how you do it. Now, interestingly, there's an inconsistency to point out here.
Okay.
The current situation in the current war, if you look at, which is managed by the UNRWA database and reported by OSHA,
mm-hmm.
They do not consider animal feed as a food product. They're logging trucks with animal feed as non-food products.
Okay.
However, the pre-war food truck figure that is being cited as 150, that figure includes animal feed as a food product. So there's that's another inconsistency that drives the comparison to make it look like there's less food going in now compared to what there was before. Okay. Because before they count animal food going in before as food products, but now animal food is not counted as food products. Let me actually make you familiar with the UNRWA database as well. I'm going to send you a link on that. You should be familiar with this database also. This database it breaks it down by day. So you'll see in the UNRWA database, you'll see for each day, you'll see how many trucks came in through Kerem Shalom and how many trucks came in through Rafah.
Hold on.
Let me know if it's loading for you. If you have the same issue.
Number of humanitarian trucks by type. Okay. What do you want me to look at for this?
And you'll notice that it has it by month now as well, the UNRWA database. So you have the April month there that you didn't have with OSHA.
Oh, okay. Number of trucks entered per day.
Yeah. And if you click on a category,
Kerem Shalom, is that does that come out of the north side of the Gaza Strip, like the northeastern border?
No, they're both Kerem Shalom and Rafah are both on the southern side of Gaza.
Okay.
Kerem Shalom is the border between Israel and Gaza.
Okay, and Rafah is the one that goes
Rafah is the border between
Egypt.
Egypt and Gaza. Now you should know that the trucks do have inspections at Rafah, but they're not Israeli inspections. They're Egyptian inspections. They're Egyptian security checks.
Really?
Wait,
are you 100% sure about that?
Yes, but I'll explain.
Okay, yeah, go for it. Yeah. Sorry, okay.
So the way it works is there is a border called the Nitzana border. The trucks come to Nitzana first if they're going to go to Rafah. They get inspected at Nitzana, then they go to Rafah. Their Israeli inspections for the trucks going to Rafah get inspected at Nitzana.
And
that's part of the Israeli.
Where is Nitzana, real quick? Is that
it's on the border? It's on the border between Egypt and Israel. Some call it the.
Oh, I see it.
Yeah, the Nitzana, border. It's like Yeah, there.
So you're saying in Nitzana, you're saying that they're inspected here, and then from there they drive into Egypt, and then they come in through the.
In fact, let me give you a schematic that I posted recently of all the different current aid routes. It is a bit confusing. I'll give you some other schematics as well. One moment, because this is an important point because it comes up in certain debates about like bottlenecks of aid and who's responsible for bottlenecks.
Ashdod, is that a port?
It's a port. Yeah,
that's the one right north of.
Oh, okay. The port they're giving. Yeah, and it tells you. So this shows you from the ones coming from Ashdod, where they go for inspection. So it's indicating that they're going to Nitzana to get inspected, and then they can go to Kerem Shalom and cross over, or they can from that pathway. The main pathways you should know about, like the overwhelming amount throughout this war, have been Nitzana. So originally the aid from if you're going to go to Rafah, so Rafah and Kerem Shalom are the two main crossings that most aid has come in from.
I say, okay.
Overwhelming majority. The pathway to Rafah usually starts at El Arish, which is in Egypt. And let's see, did I send you the schematic? Yes. So the shorthand is it starts from Egypt. They go to Nitzana, which is the border between Egypt and Israel. They get inspected there. Then they go back to the Rafah crossing. And then Egypt does whatever security checks they do there, but they're not Israeli security checks.
Okay.
The way to make the point here is that that actually makes sense, because it would look really weird if Israel just sent their IDF soldiers into Egyptian territory.
Sure.
You can't do that. You need a part of the territory that's yours to do that. So the trucks are going to Israeli territory where the IDF soldiers can inspect them. Then they go to Rafah.
Okay.
The reason this is important in debate is because you'll see certain claims about bottlenecks at Rafah, and you'll see them. Oh, look at all these trucks lining up to try and cross to Rafah. I mean, there is drone footage of this. The point being is that oh, look, clearly there's a bottleneck here, and clearly it's Israel's fault. But the point being is that those trucks have already been inspected by Israel. Now, maybe they're waiting for inspections from the Egyptian side. Maybe there was construction in February. Whatever. But the point is the thing to point out is that you don't even know where the inspections are happening. They're actually
sure, and that should almost be self-evidently true that if there is a backup in Rafah, why would Israeli soldiers be in Egypt doing inspections for stuff? That would be Egypt traditionally always ran this crossing, unless they would say that Israeli soldiers inside Rafah in the Gaza Strip are the ones slowing it down. But I don't know if there's any evidence of that. But
yeah, it's. I don't even think there's Israeli soldiers in Rafah in Rafah right now. There or the Rafah invasion hasn't happened. I mean,
sure, but I don't know what does the crossing look like? Is like the crossing itself like directly inside the Gaza Strip?
Yeah, they don't have. There's no Israeli soldiers on the other side of Rafah checking anything.
Okay.
They're checking it at Nitzana. Nitzana goes back to Egypt, and and it goes to Rafah. And there are some Egyptian like X-ray security checks or whatnot. But if they're lining up Rafah, from Israel's standpoint, they're like have been inspected and good to go. Like they've done their job as far as they're concerned.
Okay.
Then there's also the Kerem Shalom. That's the majority of the aid in order has been coming from Kerem Shalom, and second has been Rafah. Kerem Shalom is the main like pathway of aid throughout the last 3 months at least. So another things to know about is other points in terms of it being enough aid but not enough distribution is that there has been like a huge discrepancy between the COGAT numbers. And I'll just give you their website right now. I'll link it to you. COGAT logs trucks on their end, and UNRAW logs trucks when what happens is the trucks unload their product. Once they reach either the Kerem Shalom crossing, they go through, or the Rafah crossing, they go through. And they unload their product. And UNRWA picks up their products on their trucks.
Okay.
And one of the controversial points here is that there's a growing discrepancy between the numbers. Right now, it's around 1,000. 1,000 trucks are like quote unquote missing. There's I say quote unquote missing because they're unaccounted for.
Can you shoot me? Is there going to be any articles or anything talking about this? So if I look for like discrepancy between UNRWA.
Here's what I will do.
Okay.
Because a lot of this is my work that I've done, but it's all sourced and it's all screenshotted and everything. Let me send you this Excel file.
Oh, okay. It helps if I have other articles, especially if I can get like Amnesty International, because obviously these are the sources that they like. Because if I'm in a debate with these guys, I can never say like my Jewish friend who posts himself with Israeli flags on Twitter gave me this research. Right?
There's definitely articles about Israel accusing UNRWA of miscounting trucks. I mean, Israel accusing, let's see, undercounting trucks. Let me just see if this pops up. Here is an article, for example, just showing this is the point of contention. Here you go. So Israel accuses the UN of undercounting humanitarian aid trucks. The work I did was just manually going into all these databases and actually just putting the data in a spreadsheet and looking at the discrepancies, looking at how the current aid compares to different metrics, compared to different levels of food needs, and different goals as it relates to different levels of malnutrition, starvation, and whatnot. So it is worth going over this, because even if there's nothing in here that is citing me. Like, it's not like it is my work, but it's But yeah, so
I'm just keep reading a question. Destiny, can you ask him, the COGAT numbers he got were just taken from the website each day, correct? Since COGAT still does not have a day-by-day database / table that can be consulted.
That is a very good point. And if you click on the Excel spreadsheet now, you'll notice that that's exactly what I've been doing. I have been screenshotting the COGAT updates every single day from March. So I have data from March 20th and onward to get the COGAT data. It's not now. They are working on a database the way UNRWA has and the way OSHA has, and from what I've heard is that they are planning on releasing that. So they'll have their own little database the way the other three have. The other two have.
Are you worried about them retroactively updating stuff?
It's funny you mention that because I've actually caught UNRWA doing that.
Okay. Also, to be clear, let me just say, because you're loading that a lot, caught somebody doing it. It's not necessarily a bad thing if something is retroactively updated. It could be that something was counted improperly or some other thing, right? Like it doesn't have to be.
Yeah, but once I called them out for doing it, they deleted it after I sent the tweet to them.
Oh, well, okay. I'm just saying. Fuck you.
So actually, I want to show you that. One point, let me just get that out of the way first, because that actually is important, because there's been a number of issues with the.
Wait a second.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my fucking god! You're using a fucking trackpad?
Yeah, I'm on a laptop right now.
Yeah, I heard that. Oh god. Oh, gross. Oh my god! I just can't believe that. How could you use it? Trackpad. Oh my.
I'm not in my house. I'm on a laptop, bro. Like, okay.
Right. Sorry. Okay. A portable mouse, wireless one.
Okay.
My god. Sorry, I'm just kidding. God. But I'm not really kidding. So
there's that. Then there's other just general data issues with UNRWA, as I have written in this article here, which is to show that this is just to show that they're sloppy. They misattribute types of trucks all the time. So for my project, I actually have to clean their database for them.
Okay. Here's a quick thing. Where here somebody saying this. I don't think I'll get that far into the weeds on this. Somebody says, when I say somebody, I'm talking, there's a guy in my chat called Irk. Irk says, oh, Destiny, one more thing you should talk to him about. Key talking point. Ask him about the Koget red line documents published by Geisha. Your opponent might talk about the red line, which was like the calorie rationing Koget was considering. Okay, go ahead.
In fact, I'll send you the red lines document right now. So, in fact, that was actually used as part of my project. I actually standardized the current for the green line in my graph, which was from the red lines document, which I'm linking to right now. I've actually standardized the current population to those calorie metrics. So the red lines document was a controversial point, but there was some controversy that actually Geisha sued the Israeli government for. And so somewhere around 2007, 8, 9, it took longer than I think. Ministry of Defense versus Geisha rendered September 5th, 2012. Then they finally gave it to them. But what it is they calculated a rationing of calories for individuals in the Gaza Strip. Now the stated purpose is to prevent malnutrition. However, I will tell you that if you actually look at the red lines document, the rations that are listed there are actually above what many Westerners even eat. It's not like
wait. What page? What slide? What am I looking for?
Yeah. Sure. So let's go. Let me go to the red lines document. Food consumption in Gaza Strip, red lines, calories dating according to Ministry of Health Index broken down by age, gender. So it would be page 24 in that PDF. It would be slide 4. Age, calories, and daily food portion in grams in the Gaza Strip, according to Ministry of Health Index, broken down by age and gender. Let me know where you're there.
Okay, yeah, I see.
Okay. So...
Wait, what is this? I'm not reading this correctly.
This is a breakdown of the rations, including the total calories per day for different demographics. Based on
are they using a different type of calorie or?
Wait, hold on. What are you? Let me see what you're
like when I'm seeing like male 15 to 18 total calories per day 3,000.
I know, right?
Well, not right.
3,000 calories a day.
That's the. Okay, fuck. I don't have time to dig into all this. That can't be correct. That can't be like the estimates that they would expect people to eat or that.
No, it's with a safety margin. So so it's shocking you because this document has been presented as one of the most controversial things, being like, oh, they're putting the Gazans on a diet, which is a quote from David Weissglass. That's a contested quote that no one can even verify that happened. And so this whole uproar happened, and they sued the Israeli government to provide them like what they're actually doing, what the Ministry of Health is actually looking at, how they're making sure they're getting the calories and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And so everyone's expecting the Red Lines document to be like this just above starvation rations to Gazans.
Sure. Also, wait, real quick. Is this slide 4 here on page 24, is this the total amount of food expected to be there, including local production, or is this just food being shipped in?
It's including local production.
Okay.
This is the like the end all be all after all the aid has come in and accounting for their local food production. Like are we doing enough to get Gazans to meet this rationing?
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Essentially. Yeah. And Yes, and in fact, on other pages, they'll go through the calculations of the local food production and how much that's equivalent in truckloads and yada yada. If you're interested in looking at that on your free time, I've looked at that myself. So when you actually look at the rations in the Red Lines document, you're going to have this degree of surprise. You're going to be like, wait a minute, this is more than many Americans eat. And if you actually look at their conclusion, that they do mention like, oh, actually, yeah, we're doing fine, and in fact, there's a safety margin here. Like, this is an adequate amount of rationing. But everyone has taken the Red Lines document to be like, oh, like, you guys are just
they differentiate in here too. They have that 5 business days. They note that carefully on this document as well.
They note that carefully over there.
Food enters 5 days a week. Therefore, in calculating the number of truckloads, the amount of food required per day was multiplied by a factor of 7/5. The thing you mentioned earlier. Yeah.
Exactly. You'll notice that you'll never see that come up in the UN. It's very sneaky. Like, the way that this has been reported is very disingenuous.
Wait, what is this? What is this? What am I? You said verse Geisha. What is Geisha? Who is this?
Geisha is it's similar to like B'Tselem, just for aid.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's one of their own watchdogs, and they've sued the Israeli government for this document.
Gotcha. Okay, and then this is this happened in 2012.
The lawsuit was completed and this document was presented in 2012, but that's not when the document was made. It was made earlier than that, like around the presentation was dated in 2008.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay. Wait, so what is the relevance of this then? If this is like 12 years old,
the relevance, the relevance of this is that sometimes with the way this comes up is that people will say, well, we actually know how much aid Gazans need because Israel has already calculated how much Gazans need on the Red Lines document. And if you standardize the current age and gender and population distribution with the total numbers, you get fairly high. You get a fairly high amount, and Israel hasn't actually reached that those truck aid coming in, especially with no local food production, for quite some time. And I mean, they have recently reached it, but they haven't for the majority of the war. And the response to that is just to point the number of responses that. So I don't know if you go back to that graph that I had, the green line is basically how I calculated that. I basically took the Red Line's rationing, and I standardized it to the current Gazan population. That's the green line, the highest line. It's the Red Line's document one.
Okay.
And so the response to that is actually, well, that's. If you understood what the Red Lines actually is, despite what its claimed purpose is, you'll see that the rationing is such that it's gluttonous, if anything. The rationing has a wild safety margin in there, to the point where, like, despite what all the politics around it, and despite how much crazy reporting has been done around it, if you actually look at the numbers indicate that if you were to eat like that, you'd just be a chubby guy unless you're exercising quite a bit in the United States, if you were a Westerner doing this. You may also hear that come up as part of the history of Israel, like, oh yeah, they're putting the Gazans on a diet. It's another quote, by the way, you might be aware of, like, putting Gazans on a diet from David Weisglass.
Yeah, I've heard that one a lot.
That's an unverified quote. He disputed ever saying it. No one can ever actually confirm that quote has been even said. In fact, there's a whole article about like how it was dishonest for the media to do that. Another meme to be aware of.
Okay, who just joined?
It's me. It's Econoboi.
Oh, hi, what's up?
Yeah, I just had a quick question for Avi. Seems like he knows more about this. Sorry if you've already mentioned it, Avi. So on this food, so as far as I understand, this is sort of food that's tracked that's coming in, right?
Yes.
Or like food that already exists that's being domestically produced?
But both, I think, yeah.
Well, what are you referring to? Are you referring to the Red Lines document? Or are you referring to are you referring to one of the databases that we were talking about? Like, what are you talking about specifically?
I think Destiny just had a slideshow.
Yeah,
that
what I'm
showed,
looking
like,
at on my
calories
stream.
a day.
Yeah, that is just so that is a calculated rationed target. And that target is being met, or was being met.
Yeah, he's just asking for the thing that's meeting it. This is not just food coming in. This is food coming in.
It's what's meeting it is two different sources: imports of food and local agricultural production.
Yeah, so I guess one of the questions that I would have is, when we see this and we see like, okay, well, it seems like there's this local ration target that's theoretically possible. Is the actual distribution of that food reaching the people who need it, or is there distributional problems that might cause a lot of people to fall through these gaps?
Are you talking about? Are you talking about the current situation, or are you talking about the Red Lines document?
I don't know what the Red Lines document is. I guess I'm talking about the current situation.
All right, yeah. So the point of the current situation, So the answer is the whole project that I've done with this, and all the data that you're looking at here is just food that's going in. It doesn't. It's not looking at like, oh well, did we track each parcel of food to make sure it got into the right hands? The answer is no. That's not what the data is showing. Sure. And the point of that data is to show that while there may be a problem, and it's not in dispute that there is a problem, I do think the problem is being overblown, but I do think it's still a serious problem. I think it's overblown in the sense that people are talking about like there's imminent famine, and if they understood what that word meant by IPC standards, like it's not even remotely true, and that there hasn't been a reported starvation death from the Gaza Ministry of Health for over a month now. Maybe even like since day 158, and we're at like 200 and something, day 200 something. So,
well, couldn't that be a bit misleading? Because like if we imagine there's sort of this like general caloric deficit, not necessarily starvation, but if there's like a sufficiently large percentage of the population that faces this caloric deficit, that might exacerbate other problems in the area as well. Like
no, as I said, I'm not suggesting there isn't a problem.
Okay.
I'm suggesting that it's being hyperbolized. People are talking about what imminent famine means is that there's going to be 2 to 4 deaths from starvation per every 100,000 every day.
Well, I mean, yeah, sure. I guess I'm trying to reconcile the numbers of like, okay, well, it seems like if we aggregate and it seems like we theoretically have enough calories to meet everyone's sort of daily caloric need with the sort of current reporting on the ground, which I mean, it seems to heavily imply that there's definitely distributional problems.
There's a distribution issue, of course. Yes, in fact, that's what Israel has said themselves. They said the problem is not getting food into Gaza; the problem is getting food around Gaza.
Right.
Which is true. I mean, that is the issue, and the way to get around that is by opening new routes, which Israel has doing. They have a route that goes directly into northern Gaza now. They have coordination paths and corridors to northern Gaza. They have airdrops. They have a port. So they are working on improving the distribution, of course. But the point being is that you'll see a more. I mean, and yes, you can make the argument that Israel's responsible for distribution. Of course, I mean they're partially responsible. So is Hamas, but for reasons we can get into. But the point is that what people like to do in this debate is they like to shift the focus in the pro-Palestinian side. They like to shift the focus away from distribution, and they like to shift the focus onto the inspection points. Why do they like to do that? Because it's a much easier argument to make about the Israel bad, though. Because while you can make the argument on distribution, like, oh yeah, Israel's like flooding a whole bunch of aid into the Gaza Strip, they're facilitating that, but they need to do more to improve distribution. That's they can make that argument, but it doesn't really have the teeth to bite into the Israel bad though crack pipe as much as an argument like, oh, they're making the inspection process so arduously long that not even enough food could get in and everyone's starving to death.
I mean, I guess so. I guess if you're, I mean, I see what you're saying, obviously. I guess from like a pro-Palestinian perspective, it doesn't seem like the nuanced view really like decolors the situation in terms of like who to blame. Like it seems like a pro-Palestinian person, like you said, could just as easily say, okay, well, yes, like theoretically there's enough food coming in, but the more sophisticated argument could just be that the sort of destruction imposed on Gaza by, the Israeli military.
Well, then it gets a little complicated then, because it's not just Israel, right? There's this.
No, I know. I'm really not trying to posit the argument.
Well, no, but I'm just telling you why it does decolor it. And it's not to say that Israel bears no responsibility, but now it's a question of partial responsibility.
Because like, okay, well, if you have an entity that is, if you have an area where there's gangs, you have the entity that's digging up water pipes to turn it into Walmart rockets to fly at an Iron Dome. If you have some of those, by the way, some of the routes, potential routes that have wanted to be used, have been damaged by Hamas themselves on October 7th.
I guess so. I mean, but from like a pro-Israeli perspective, I don't really know if there's. I mean, this is just for my own education. I don't really know about this debate that is going on, but like, I just don't really know if it. I don't know if it's like particularly. I don't know if it helps the pro-Israeli side to be like, well, Israel's only partially responsible for the distribution problem, not like just limiting the number of calories. It's like, okay, well, from my perspective, like a pro-Palestinian perspective, that just sounds like, oh, well, yeah, we're kind of sharing blame here, but definitely Israel's still really fucking up.
The reason why this matters is because Avi has been giving you the most unbelievably steelman version of what the argument is about aid slowing down into Gaza. The actual mainstream majority opinion is that Israel is intentionally slowing down aid. And that story is almost completely unsubstantiated and seemingly impossible given what's going on. So if the aid distribution within the Gaza Strip is an issue, then that is a substantially different claim than Israel is intentionally trying to slow down and hamper aid to collectively punish the Palestinians. Or maybe they could be further through another avenue it would be then.
You guys are going to know more about this than me. What was the whole purpose of Biden sending in those aid drops? It seemed like there was a real problem.
Well, the point is that aid drops are going to the ease of getting food to the north. The overall majority of the aid drops have been to the north in Gaza. And that is part of the distribution problem. You'll notice that Kerem Shalom and Rafah, where the majority of aid has been coming in, is South Gaza. So you have to get it from South Gaza to go to North Gaza, which is part of the distribution issue in a combat zone.
I'd have to look into it. I feel like I've read reporting that seems to speak to the effect that like the State Department is very frustrated with Israel. Like, I think the quotes have been like slow walking aid, throttling aid or something, and that. This was part of the motivation.
I don't know what they can say what they want, but I'm.
The issue this is a very political situation. The issue is that on the United States side, the U.S. is facing an election year, and Israel is conducting a massive fucking war during an election year that is like causing a lot of turmoil in the Middle East. So on an external front, the United States has to be incredibly, incredibly strong in supporting the rights of potentially damaged innocent parties like the Palestinians. And I think that's like the line that the United States is trying to straddle right now, essentially. So if there's aid that's having trouble getting to people, the United States coming out and being like, well, Israel's doing their best, guys, is obviously looks really bad. It hurts Biden's chances of his own population, right? You've heard the Dearborn, Michigan, all that bullshit, and any populations.
So the argument, but it sounds like Avi is making the argument that there's actually not much trouble getting aid like to the region. It's more just once it's there, distributing that aid becomes a real problem.
Correct. But I think most when you actually read through stories, that seems to be the more sophisticated actual argument. Because because I've gone through a ton of these, and if you have a single one of these, I would love to see it. But like I'll see a lot of stories that'll say things like Israel is slow walking aid or Israel is intentionally hampering aid, and when I click through these, I cannot find a single actual example of this ever. Even when I click through to, I think the UN published a report claiming this 2 weeks ago, and I tried to click through for the underlying material that they linked, and all of it was just like other links to vague stories, like no pictures, no videos, no conversations, no sources from individuals that had experienced this, no like actual individual, none of it. It was all just like this huge circling bullshit of like, self-referential shit. So, but there are people that are saying things relating to, and you've seen the pictures posted by Kogat, if that's worth it or not, and then other articles that go a little deeper into it say, well, there's a huge problem with distribution on the other side, which, by the way, Israel could be partially responsible for that, but that's a more sophisticated argument that most retards on the pro-Palestinian side just aren't making. Well, it's frustrating because, like, so for instance, like one issue with distribution of aid, there could be two big issues, right? Or two issues that play into it. One is that it's just not safe to do it because it's a fucking war zone, right? Which Israel plays a part in. Two might be that if you look at like those WCK workers and you see that Israel has engaged in strikes that have killed some humanitarian aid workers, well, fuck, you don't want to fucking deliver food. So they're having trouble, I think, finding drivers for a lot of this as well, which is also partially Israel's fault. So these are legitimate arguments you can make against Israel, but it's different than they're intentionally trying to starve to death the people of the Gaza Strip, which is stupid. It's a dumb argument. It doesn't get anywhere, but yeah.
And the most sophisticated way you could even get there is saying like, okay, well, Israel is sneakily, letting enough aid in, but they're deliberately hampering distribution, which they're not. Like they're opening numerous different pathways to help distribution. They're hiring private sector Palestinians to distribute aid to the north. They're working with numerous different organizations to send convoys to the north. They've opened a passageway directly to the north. So the point is that, yes, so Israel has some responsibility for distributing, to facilitate distribution of aid, yes, to the citizens of Gaza, absolutely. The response to the Steelman argument there is that, well, they are doing that. And since they have really taken that seriously, there has not been a single starvation death reported by the Gaza Ministry of Health. And there's a good case to make that was probably attributable to the February decline during when when almost no trucks came in from Rafah, when that area was under construction, when Egypt was doing their construction at the Rafah border in anticipation. I thought it seems like they were anticipating Gazan refugees trying to come in or something. They made like an extra construction.
Yeah. I guess the biggest question for me is like, I just have a hard time. So I get what you're saying, Destiny, that, Biden's administration might be almost like politically incentivized to overreact to this situation because of, part of the base might just, well, I guess like the Democratic base is overwhelmingly much more pro-Palestinian than the Republican base. And so he might, feel the need to almost like overreact to any particular situation in the region. But I don't know. I mean, it seems like there's just a lot of reporting that I've read that is like the Biden administration really upset with basically how Netanyahu is conducting this war in like several different aspects. And obviously the frustrating part from everyone's perspective is that we don't have access to all these intelligence reports and like on the ground sort of depth of information.
I mean, and it is frustrating, right? Like we don't want innocent Palestinians dying. Like it looks bad for everybody and it is frustrating. But like the most disgusting thing about this entire conflict, in my opinion, is all of the pressure, every single part of this pressure is exclusively aimed at Israel. And that is unbelievably evil to me. Hamas has a population. They are the administrators to the region. Why haven't they worked with Israel to create a safe zone for anything? Why haven't they worked to establish any humanitarian aid corridors? Why are they engaging in attacks from places that are supposed to be safe areas? Why are they telling people not to leave their homes? Hamas has not only failed, but have actively hampered in every single part of this humanitarian process. I don't know if, and maybe there is, maybe you have a historical example. I don't know if there is a single example of a war being conducted where the party that's responding to a massive attack also has to do 100% of the work to take care of the enemy civilian population while being blamed for 100% of every single bad thing that happens. Is there a history of this? Is there a history of any warfare like this ever happening in the history of the planet, or at least in the last 100 years?
I mean, I think in terms of the reporting, of course not. I mean, obviously the Israel-Palestine issue gets a very incredibly disproportionate amount of reporting and international attention. I mean, even if we just think about Muslims who are oppressed worldwide, I mean, you can make a case that Muslims in Myanmar, Muslims in the Xinjiang region there's a much more aggregately bad thing happening there. But obviously, for whatever reason, the Israel-Palestine conflict gets a lot more attention. But I don't know. I think that a lot of it could just come down to how we would view the responsibility of a terrorist group versus the responsibility of a state.
Well, it's not a terrorist. Wait, hold on. It's not a terrorist group. They are the administrators of the region. It's the Gazan Health Ministry is ran by Hamas.
Yeah.
All of the administrators in the region are by, I don't even know how to say de facto. It's de jure. They are by letter of law. It is their industries. They run it. It's their money. They control everything inside. They're the administrators to the region.
No, I understand what you're saying. Obviously,
but it's insane that the popularity for Hamas is still fairly high. So and obviously what I'm saying right now is a personal opinion and is not reflective of international law, and it shouldn't be. But fuck them. If you don't even care about your own government having any responsibility to protect you, and every death is a martyrdom for the fucking advancement of whatever plot we have. Holy shit! It's like trying to It feels like getting aid to Palestinians in the Gaza Strip is like trying to feed a crazy schizophrenic person who's violent and trying to kill themselves in a straitjacket, all at the same and you at the same time. It's an unbelievably difficult thing to do, and the international pressure the entire time is calling you a retard every time the guy breaks out of his straitjacket and stabs you or himself.
I don't know. I mean, unfortunately, I've always been very sympathetic to Palestinians in that region, just because, at least from my reading of much of the history of many different regions in the world, is that number one, like state propaganda is a very powerful tool, right? So like, for instance, when like 60-70% of Russians say that they approve of like the Russian-Ukraine war, they approve of Vladimir Putin's leadership, a lot of that has to do with like the control of state media and just like general effectiveness of state
I
propaganda.
understand what you're saying. My issue isn't what Palestinians tell themselves, though. The issue is the international support for the Palestinian cause is unending. There is no... How many times have you heard conversations about how we need to restrict the military budget of Israel because of how they conduct themselves? How many of those people have talked about conditioning any of the money that goes into Palestine based on the actions of Hamas? You've never heard that said by anybody in your entire life. But like, so it's like, it's not, if the conversation isn't even remotely equivalent. And then like you said earlier, like the disproportionate news coverage is fucking insane. If you covered the last 100 years of war involving 10 plus countries in this region that for the bodies that have been buried in wars involving Israel, it's like 1/3 of the amount of people that died in the Syrian civil war, like of just that conflict. That's ignoring Iran, Iraq, which is over 1 to 2 million people. That's ignoring the first and second Gulf War. That's ignoring how many hundreds of thousands of people died in fucking Yemen. That's ignoring like it's insane. It's unbelievable. It's like unreal. Like this is like the place where any rational thought just goes to die immediately. Sorry, go ahead. Okay.
Well, obviously, there's definitely a group of like pro-Palestinian protesters who would say that they like, I don't know, like they critically support the actions of like Iran or the Houthis,
or
they do, Saudi Arabia or something like that.
I would consider that, by the way, a mainstream opinion. I think that is a mainstream opinion. For instance, I think Norm Finkelstein is probably the most cited Western, in huge air quotes, academic on this particular topic, and he openly supports the Houthis. He says it's bold and brave when they bomb fucking ships going through the whatever strait they're fucking bombing down there. Yeah, like it's insane. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's pretty crazy. I mean, to the extent that any pro-Palestinian like protester says, I support this Islamist government as long as they're, I don't know, like billions in the name of like helping Palestinians or something. It's like obviously that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and when do we support? By the way, when do we support regime change? Is the Israeli regime so bad that a regime change needs to happen? But we didn't feel that way about Saddam Hussein. We didn't feel that way about Gaddafi. We don't feel that way about the Houthis. We don't feel that way about Bashar al-Assad, who gasses his own fucking people. We don't, like, in any of these, the Shah in Iran, in any of these places, nobody on the left would be like, we need to regime change, horrible leaders. We need to regime change, horrible leaders. But Netanyahu is the one that crosses the line. That's the one where the United States need to be actively, it's an unbelievable. This is a waste of fucking time. If you have a map, don't ever read anything about Israel, because this is the most retarded fucking conflict in how international opinion is shaped about it compared to anything else I've ever seen in my life. Sorry, go ahead. My bad. I'm sorry.
Maybe I'm crazy. I mean, have you spoken to pro-Palestinian protesters that are like, we want the U.S. should overthrow the Israeli government? Is that like an opinion that you've
that is, of course, that's the opinion, right?
Absolutely.
Wait, what?
Like, not just forget about the U.S. They want Hamas to overthrow the Israeli government.
The easiest way to get here is you ask a lefty. You ask them like, "Oh, you're upset that the United States supports Israel. So you're saying that if the United States were to withdraw our budget completely, you'd be happy with the situation? You just leave it as is?" None of them would say yes to that. None of them are like, "Oh, okay. Well, as long as the U.S. is supporting Israel, they can do whatever they want." No, of course not. They would support any local power overthrowing the Israeli regime. Yeah.
I'm not going to take seriously, videos of select groups of protesters chanting certain crazy things. Obviously, that's true, right? But I'm just talking about, generally speaking, of the people who would align themselves, more pro-Palestinian or more like skeptical of the actions of the Israeli government. I don't think like the generally held opinion, at the very least amongst like I'm American, so I'm speaking about Americans. So I don't know what people in like Egypt think or something, but I don't think generally it's held the idea like, oh yeah, we should overthrow the Israeli government and like allow Hamas to govern the entire region.
I hear that. So you can contend with the logic here, and that's fair. But I hear that when somebody says the IDF are the biggest terrorist group compared to Hamas. I hear that when people say, oh, you think that Hamas has done bad things? Well, whatever they've done, Israel's done 10 times worse.
Well, maybe like you talked to Cenk Uygur, right? And like
sure.
Cenk Uygur has said like, I think the IDF is a huge terrorist group. But like, do you think if you ask Cenk Uygur the question, would you rather Hamas govern that region? I mean, certainly he would say no to that question.
No, he wouldn't. He would say, well, whatever you'd say about Hamas, the IDF has done 10 times worse. It would be something along those lines. Guaranteed. Because but also hold on. Also,
solution, right?
Hold on. They have to play honestly.
Well, I mean, even Norm Finkelstein doesn't support, an immediate one-state solution, is my understanding. Like even like that opinion isn't even held by the Palestinians that live in the region. They don't support.
Well, sure. I'm drawing a difference between in Palestine and outside, because the rest of the world is insane. In Palestine, I think the Palestinians are smart. I think they're doing exactly what they should be.
Anyway, but no, thanks obviously for answering those questions. I was just curious. I guess like I said, the thing that I need to research more and maybe it'll be useful for the debate is just like because I feel like Biden in all this like background reporting is like genuinely frustrated with the way that Israel's conducting the war in the sense that there's either a lack of information sharing and or the information that's being shared is, I guess it like points to a bad enough motivation or management of the war by Israel that there seems to be like historic tension between the American and Israeli government. And like I said, I don't even know if it's even possible to get clarity on that because a lot of that might be just classified information. It's a lot of its background, like, oh, sources are saying the White House is really frustrated. It's like, I don't know how.
You're going to expect to get that though. They have to with an election coming up. They want to.
Well, yeah. I mean, if you got,
perception that you're frustrated with Israel for their.
I understand, like, but I just don't. I don't know. I don't think it's for show, basically. I'd have a hard time. I think the most probable scenario is that they are getting information that they're not comfortable sharing with the public for various like intelligence reasons.
Show. To be clear, I'm not saying it's for show. Like there's a way of sending a message. There's different ways of sending the same message. Like there's a way.
Sure. I mean, you described it as hyperbole, right? Where like they're kind of like overreacting or like they have to, put on
not just overreacting. From a technical standpoint, they may just be completely inaccurate. But there's a way of sending a communication to like in a non-technical dumbed down way that it's like, okay, well, this is close enough. This is like, okay.
Well, I mean, yeah, it could just be one of those things like we have to wait for all these people to retire and write books in 15 years and like we'll get more clarity, at that point, like how this.
We don't have to wait for that long to know what the.
Well, and also,
like we know the facts on the ground. We know the data going, trucks going.
You're also he's talking about like individual trucks. You'll never get probably all the stories on this because the level of like clarity and transparency that's being requested here is unprecedented. Like, remember that after we pulled out of Afghanistan, I'm pretty sure the United States full on fucking bombed like a Doctors Without Borders camp or hospital or whatever. Do you remember this? Do you know what I'm referring to?
I'm a youngster. I don't remember.
No.
Afghanistan war.
No. When we pulled out of Afghanistan, like I think.
Oh, when we pulled out of Afghanistan? No, I don't recall the story you're talking about.
I'm not gonna be able to find this. It wasn't October. It was in 2015. It was like, fuck. What am I thinking of, guys? This is. Oh wait, was it this? U.S. airstrikes destroy hospital in Kunduz, Afghanistan. 6 years later, it's reopening. The Doctors Without Borders hospital. We just like full on bombed a hospital and basically said, "Oops," because it was probably a mistake. I don't think the U.S. is intentionally fucking bombing a hospital. We killed over 40 people in this strike. It's not like we were in a fucking war at the moment, but you don't have any transparency there. You're not getting published statements from the United States intelligence services figuring out like what went wrong. You're not getting a full top-down briefing of everything, right? And this is just one thing outside of war that like what the fuck. But like the full insight into the entire top-down military apparatus of Israel and how they're conducting an ongoing war, like you're never getting that information, and no one has ever requested it because nobody would ever expect to even get it. But it's I don't know. We can talk about it.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't expect a full forensic audit anytime soon. I'm saying like the best case scenario is maybe in a few years we get like a foreign minister who writes a book about his sort of recollection of events kind of thing, right? So like I said, unfortunately, it might just be one of those things that we never really get full clarity on. But my read of the situation is just that my intuition, I should say, is not that the Biden administration is like trying to put on a show or be hyperbolic or try to like basically just like present themselves as being skeptical of Israel. I think it's more genuine than that.
It wasn't.
They're probably getting reports that are
right. It's a different one.
Very concerning, and the information sharing might be so frustratingly slow or combative that it's there's probably some bad stuff going on that we're just kind of not aware of. But anyway, that's my perspective. Obviously, it's hard to find evidence.
By the way,
for that,
the
but-
poll you mentioned is just Gazans. By the way, it's not Palestinians. It's still like that. Even with that
Well,
change,
that-
in Gazan
That's what I'm
sentiment.
talking about, right?
Yeah,
So because they're the ones getting invaded, right? But yeah, maybe the West Bankers feel significantly. I mean, I'm sure there's clearly huge divergences in opinion between the West Bank and the Gaza Strip Palestinians on certain key issues. So maybe that's true. But anyway, it was good talking to you guys. I got to hop out. I'll talk to you guys later.
I love you. Be careful. Bye.